String formatting. So this is the next thing that we will learn here now. In Python, there are three types of string formatting. Generally, every language will have string formatting. So the traditional things what you do in a C language or C++ or Java, that is called as a old style formatting, or also called as literal formatting. At the same time, Python also supports two other things called as new style, and the other one is F strings. Let's start with the old style. Old style means what you see on a typical, any other language, where you have some kind of percentiles followed by any numbers. Means here every percentile represent one particular thing. See, percentile D or I for the integers, percentile C or percentile S for the characters. So for the F for the floating point values, these for the representations. Means if you use these symbols, we can do anything. See, what is this concept of string formatting? In which case we're gonna use it? Say I have a small example. I take so any string and I write a percentile outside and pass the values. This is how a typical syntax should be. And if you see in this case, there is nothing was given at this moment. But if I give like one string with some kind of, placeholder, my lucky number is percentile D. Means I created a small string. If you print it, it's an ordinary string, but it has a placeholder. Means this placeholder will have a value only if you pass some value after it. Means if I do a percentile and in braces if I pass 12, means this 12 will go to the place where this placeholder is there. You are telling to the string that, hey, reserve one place for integers which I'm gonna send to you. So the most commonly used percentile D only. So very seldom people use percentile, I for strings. So for integers. Similarly, when you have a single value, you need not place a brace. You can just remove the brace also. It's fine. But if you have more than one value, then the braces are needed. So that is how you get it. Now, due to this, I can pass anything. Now, instead of this value, say I want to change to say 34. I need not worry every time, right? So whatever the values I am passing, it will understand and do for me in accordance. Next, what if you pass like a floating point value? Will you take a floating point value? Yes. In the integer family, integers and float can understand each other. So when you give a floating point value, it will convert to the int built-in function. The int is a built-in function. If you pass any floating point value, not like a string, but like a number, then it will truncate the, so floating point part and you get the real value, right? So that is how this one happens. Okay, whatever you give, it will take. But at the same time, if you take the same example and if you pass like some other data type, say if I pass like a true, you know, Python knows true is also part of the integer family I told. If I pass int of true, you get 1. That's the reason you get this also. So within integer family means, integer family is what? Int, float, so boolean, and even complex also. At the same time, if you pass some other data type, say the same number like a string if you pass, then it will throw an error. So we should know what data type we are passing. If you just pass like another data type, it will definitely throw an error. So this is one limitation with the old style formatting. But what else to do? If you want to use the old style, you should be aware of what data type you're passing. Say you decided to pass a string, then you should give a percentile yes. Then it will take it. And the beauty of this percentile yes is that, so as I told, it can take any data type for that matter. You give anything and it will convert to the things. See, whereas if I give and if I give percentile f now, Percentile f means any number it will take to floating point value. Whether I give like this or this one, or let me try the booleans. Say earlier I did a true, now I am trying a false. Because they can understand them, so you get this value. Now, apart from this, if I can focus further, coming to the case of string, as I told in the top, that if you are really interested in passing only string, you should pass a percentile yes. But if you pass any other data type, you should exactly mention the same data type. But if you don't mention exactly, then it will throw a type error. This is what we know. But in the old style, there is one hack. Hack means like if you pass any data type but it should work means give the placeholder as a percentile yes. If I give a placeholder as a percentile yes, you see if I give a boolean, none, integer, float, so big integer or like string, no matter what data type it give, it will do. So because anything can be converted to a string, right? If you remember, I told you this. At the same time, in the last class, I told about another built-in function called as REPR. I told it's a raw representation. Any variable, it will represent at the raw level. You will not understand much difference except for the strings. If you see in the these two examples, the result were same in both the things, except for the place when you got a string. But there were a lot of differences which you will observe down the line when you go to the exception handling and others. In which case we need to go for REPR, in which case we need to go for STR. But at this stage, you can think like this is another string, conversion function. That's it. So like this, you understood. At the same time, if you want to convert to the another things, in the old style, I told the last part is not just conversion; it is a representation, octal, hexadecimal. So like that. So if you want to do like that, the same thing you can do. I did a percentile O. It's not 0, percentile O, and I gave a 34. Means 34 is a decimal number which will be represented in the octal form. To check whether it is doing correctly or not, I used a built-in function called as OCT, octal. If you give a decimal number, it will convert to octal form, right? So I'm checking both the results. Now, if you see, when I did a string formatting, it is just doing 42 because the string it is creating. Whereas if I pass like this, it is adding the extra 0, 0, O. That prepending will be done by this octal. That's the difference between a string formatting based conversion or representation and also an ordinary built-in function. The same thing goes even with the hexadecimals. So same thing goes with hexadecimals. So earlier there used to be distinction between the uppercase and lowercase, but now they make no difference. Uppercase, lowercase doesn't make any difference. They should be like a capital X, that's it. But nowadays they made it more standardized. But even this conversion has this kind of conversions. The three types of forms in the integers I told, like octal, decimal, and binary. So, but for binary, there is no such possibility. If you try binary, it is throws an error because they didn't create something like percentile B. This is another limitation with the old style. But so coming to the case of a string, if I can list out, as I told you, a string can be represented with percentile yes, as we know till now. At the same time, there is one more thing called as percentile C. If you have a string, in general, you can represent one character or any number of characters with percentile yes. But percentile C, we can do for one digit only, one char only. So this is also a way, but people seldom use it. At the same time, so in floats also there are 2-3 ways of representation. Generally, if you do like a floating point values, there is one thing happens. You have like 12.34, 12.34 or 12 points, a big number you have. If you do like a percentile F, percentile capital F or small f, it will do the same thing. What it does is that if the number post decimal is less than 6 digits or greater than that, it will try to represent only 6 digits post decimal. So 12.34 has 2 digits post decimal, but it is giving the remaining as zeros. Whereas here it has a very big number, but still it is giving only 6 digits. So percentile F will do like this. But sir, so if you want a much different things, there are other things like percentile G. So again, smaller capital doesn't matter here. So it is like a true representation. And in this case, what happened? It is trying to round off to the nearest values as possible, because you got like a 1 which is very small. So I tried to round off. Means kind of like a better representation of the number. In the same fashion, you also have one more thing called as percentile E. As I told you, E is an exponential representation. It's a representation or notation. When you have a large or small values, we are representing into the power of e to the power of 10 to the power of 1. So like how many values you have like that. At the same time, so there is one module in Python called as math. I told in Python, if you want to use any modules, you need to, import it. So this is how I import to load it. And there is, in this math module, there is a value called as pi. Because generally I want a big value. Rather than I creating, I made use of this. So this pi value, if I try to represent in different ways, how things will happen, let me show. The same number I am trying to represent in different ways. So one is using percentile D. So if I do like percentile D, it will convert to an integer, as I told you. And if I do like a percentile F, post decimal, it will give only 6 digits. Whereas if I do percentile 9F, so this is very interesting. So till now, you know what is an integer. So whereas in the float, till now, you know percentile F and percentile G. Percentile F post decimal, it will give 6 digits. You know that. But if you want to configure this, that hey, post decimal I want less digits, or total digits how much I want, that you can mention. If you see in this output, you can understand something. So here you are mentioning like percentile 9F. 9F means, hey, reserve me 9 digit space, whether it uses or not. If you can observe carefully, post decimal 6 digits, right? 6 digits plus 1 dot 7 plus 3 8 plus 1 white space 9 digits. Did you see in the starting there is one white space extra, right? As you told to reserve 9 digits, it reserved 9 digit space. So similarly, if you see here 9.3 means, hey, reserve 9 digit space for me. Within that, in the floating point value what I'm getting, post decimal there should be only 3 digits. So 9.3 means reserve 9 digits, but post decimal only 3 digits. Hope you understood what I'm trying to say. If I kind of like using in a real time, you will understand things much better. You see in this example, if I'm using like, integers, you can understand. See here. Hope you can understand. I'm saying 786. I give a percentile D. Wherever this number is there, it will come. Whereas if I take the case of a floating point value, you can notice the same thing. Say I take only these two examples at this moment. You see what happened? You just did a percentile F. So you got like post decimal 6 digits only. So though you have like 4 digits, it added like, so appended 2 zeros extra. But if you say like, 10 digits, it has risen 10 digits. And if like if I add two more things, like 10.3 if I give, in 10.3 means total 10 digits space, but post decimal there should be 3 only. Whereas if I say 0, 10 means like, hey, the prepend with the things with 0. So did you understand what is happening? So this is nothing to do with math. This is how the syntax works. I think almost all languages support this kind of literal formatting. So you can just make use of it for better the things. Coming next to the strings back again. If you have like more than one, in that case, you need to pass 2 percentile placeholders and you pass 2 values. Like how many placeholders you have, you need to pass those many values. Similarly, so if I just place the values without a percentile and with percentile, there's a lot of difference. If you see in the first case as highlighted, there are placeholders, but there is no, so operator and values. So it will come as it is. Whereas if I pass along with that, see here, first time I told string. So here also it will check in the same order. The first value is string, so first value should be string. Next value is integer, next value is integer. Next value is a float, next value is float. I give exactly as needed, right? If I give in any other order, then it will throw in error. Means, let's say I gave like this the same thing, but what if the second value I gave like a string, but the second value it is expecting as an integer? So if there is a mismatch here and there, if it is within the integer family, it can okay, so it can manage. But if it is outside this bounds, it cannot help us. At the same time, when you're, the one problem, so to how to solve this entire problem, right? I told you a hack. So whenever you are not sure which data type you're gonna get, you can represent either with percentile yes or percentile r. So converting anything to a string or REPR is very easy. So which can be done quite easily. So if you tree, you can understand that. Whenever you're using a string, when you with a REPR, you get an extra quotes. In other case, it will be as it is. So this is fine. Now one problem solved. But there is another problem with this old style formatting is, if you give like uneven number of things, means you give 3 percentiles, all 3 you mentioned as strings only, but you give 2 values. This is another problem. So the data type should match, and 2, the number of values you are giving also should be match. If there is a limitation, then the problem gonna happen. So to list out all the problems, so in the old style you have this thing. The same data type should be passed and the same number of values should be passed. So if anything is less, then you gotta get an error. This is the main problem here. To address this, we have this concept of new style formatting. So what is this new style formatting? They created a new style, so using a format built-in function. So there are two things. This can be done in two ways. String dot format, like this you can do, or format is a built-in function, so like this also we can do. And the format only underscore format also is there, so like that. So we don't use the format built-in function because mostly people will use with the attribute only. So to understand the difference between the old style and new style in one shot, to help you understand this. You see, in old style, you give a percentile and you give values like this. Whereas in new style, you add a flower brace and you give the things. So how the value is gonna change? So let me show you. If you have like a single value, you can just pass, say within flower braces, dot format, and you give the value. Save that. You get it? So if I have like a 2 values or 3 values, so I can just pass, say age is equal to say 30. I give like one more brace, so it will execute. Am I worried about the data type here? Am I worried about the things? But like you need to pass the same number of values. If you can do that, you see here, in this case both are strings. One of them is integer, another is string. So float and a boolean, none and a boolean. It doesn't matter what data types you give, it's gonna work. And also during the process, there are two problems what I told. One is the data type and other one is the number of attributes, right? So that also is addressed. So means like if I pass like this. So by default, when you're making a braces, you are passing the values. The first braces will get a first value, second brace which get a second value. Same old rules like old style. Or explicitly you can mention the order also. Hey, give the 0th one and first one. And in the last case, what I did, give the first one and 0th one. Means you can give that ordering also. But one thing is like, if you pass two arguments and if you pass a single value, then things gonna not work, which we know. To avoid this problem, so what they told is like, so in this new style, as I told, so we have this kind of ordering. So we can use that here. You have only one value and there were two placeholders. So then you give the placeholder like 0 and 0. In both the places you get it. Now, don't you think that both the problems were addressed here? Now, not just thing, we can give a bigger things also. Say like if I go for, say, if I go for a big string, means a multi-line string. Generally, we have multi-line strings like this. So can I say like, so name like this, I placeholder, age, so placeholder, and salary, placeholder. I have three placeholders. And for the string dot format of, I can give like say uh, Gudo one resume and like age 30 and like salary is some big number something. You see, three placeholders are there. So it's a multi-line string. That's why I wrote in a triple quotes for better understanding. So you got the result. And not just things. So we can do much better things like in terms of string formatting also. In the formatting means you see here you will understand all kinds of rules. I can just give a value, and apart from value, if I give a colon, so after colon for each of the brace, I can use formatting. In the first two cases, if you can observe carefully, there is nothing more. Means you do directly or you give a colon, it makes no difference. But after colon, if you are passing something, that will definitely make a difference. You see, after colon, you give a comma. Means for every three characters, it will give a comma. You didn't need to do. If you give an underscore, for every three between, it will give an underscore. Or if you give a hyphen, or if you give a plus sign or negative sign. So like that, this kind of formattings can help you. Not just this, but also we have like good complex rules in terms of like zero fills. After this colon, if I say equal to 10, means like, so if you execute, did you notice that? Means here, it will reserve totally like 10 digits. So before that, it will be like a empty space. You see here, empty space. But if I say 0 equal to 10, means here reserve 10 digits. If there are less, so prepend with the zeros. If I say like a, so equal to 10, if it is less than that, then it will prepend with a. So like that, it can help you better. Hope it's clear. It is similar to what we do in a Z fill, right? And not just this, we can also do the alignments. Alignments means like, if you have a string, I can do this kind of alignments. You see, in this case, what's happening? I wrote here in one shot so that you can understand. So if you want to do a left alignment or right alignment or a center alignment, so the arrow is pointing to the left, so it is left alignment. Right means right alignment, and like up means like center alignment. In the same fashion, if I do like during these alignments, if you want to fill with some fill value, you mention that character hyphen or so and so, it's gonna work. And lastly, so not only this, we can also do the formattings also. If I do like percentile B or percentile O or so and so, what we did in the others. In the wholesale formatting, there is no binary formatting, whereas here we have binary also. So in the same fashion, I added few more things for you to understand. Just walk through them, you will understand. And not just these things, I also told about the formatting in terms of percentile F and percentile G. What we did in the same there, percentiles, the same thing works here also. Percentile F means post decimal 6 digits. Percentile G means it tries to minimize as much as possible. And in the same lines, same like there, percentile F, if you say post decimal, I want 3 digits, you can reserve like that. So it's gonna reserve to you like this. So post decimal, 3 digits, it's gonna reserve. You see here, it will reserve all the spaces, and post decimal you get like this. So this is how it works. Next, so similarly, you can do like a few more things. There are many other operations like this in the new style. If I do like a percentile, it will calculate the percentile values. Means multiply by 100 and write a percentile symbol. As I told you, so when you have multiple values, you can do like in multiple things. You write it all in the same line, give three values, or like multiple lines as I told in the top. So you give. Both the ways it will work. So no matter like how many variables you have, it will pass based upon the context. Okay. If I say like this, in this case here, if I specify the number positions 0, 1, 2, then obviously zeroth value will go to the zeroth position, first value will go to the first position, like that. In the same fashion, if I pass like multiple things, so ensure that you are giving the exact positions. As it has like three values 0, 1, 2, because indexing start with 0, we should give in that way. If I pass, it will work for that also. In the same lines, if I give like all of same data type, or if I don't use a particular position value also, it will work. If I don't use a particular value position also, it's gonna work. And lastly, so I will stop here. Got some